Hello, fellow nerds, geeks, and supporters of any pop culture creators. Aaron Abuse here, and welcome to the Hall H Show. On this episode, we welcome digital content creator and knowledge sharer, Ant Pruitt. He's part of the Twit TV family as a host producer of Hands On Photography. He also described himself as 33% geek, 33% nerd, 33% dork, and I guess the other 1% is to be determined. We'll definitely explore all of that and more on this conversation, and hopefully we'll find out what the remaining 1% is. Welcome to the show, Ant.
Hey, Mr. Nabus, I'm still trying to figure out what that 1% is.
All right. Well, if we don't find out by the end of this conversation, we'll have to have you on again.
Deal.
Yeah, like all our heroes, they all have origin stories. Why don't you let us know where you grew up and what was it like when you were younger?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina, or as I like to refer to it as South Kakalaki. Yeah, and it's the countryside and not necessarily big cities or anything like that. Where basically the only thing that really matters there is just going to school and getting a job, and regardless of what that job is, just get a job, and football. That's what matters there. And I enjoyed being there, and I enjoyed growing up there for the most part. I say that a little bit more so nowadays because I look back and think about what I grew up with and who I grew up with and things like that. And I actually had it fairly nice and just can appreciate it more so now. But yeah, it was pretty cool growing up there in the South and just being a country boy that happened to like arts in addition to liking sports and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of growing up in that area, I know that you grew up with Chadwick Boseman, or as you would say, Chad, because you knew him as Chad. I saw your video on Twitter of your heartfelt words about him.
Thanks for watching that.
I know it was really emotional for you, and I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, Chad. I still find it hard to say Chadwick Boseman. I don't know why, but yeah, Chad was he was the brother of my neighbors. Where I lived, the whole neighborhood in this countryside. Okay, so the whole neighborhood was pretty much owned by that plot of land was owned by a particular family, maybe two families, and the land that my mother bought to put her house on was owned by the Boseman family. And so our neighbors were Bosemans of that area. And there was two girls that lived there. And we all rode the school bus together and hang out and whatever, just being kids and being teenagers or whatever. But every now and then this dude would show up. That was their brother. And his name was Chad Boseman. And Chad was just a cool dude, just like any of the rest of us there that enjoyed just being a kid and enjoyed being a teenager and playing sports and hanging out, and doing the best he can, trying to excel in whatever it is he put his mind to. But at the same time, he was a little bit different because he was really into the arts. He was really into fine arts. And quite frankly, where I'm from, a lot of black folks could give a crap about art like that. It is what it is, because we never really felt like we had a place in the art world. And, it was different for me because I would draw and sketch or whatever and try to paint here and there. And I loved it. And I loved music and had a little keyboard and would try to play an electronic keyboard, learn songs by ear and all of that stuff. So it was different for me. And it was the same way with Chad Boseman. He just, in addition to being the typical black kid in the South that likes to run around and have fun and play sports and yada, 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 he was also very serious about the world of arts and debate. And I didn't go to the same school as he, but we were always in competition with that school. So we saw each other fairly often, whether it was passing by at the neighbors or whether it was competing on the gridiron or on the basketball court. He was a hell of a basketball player. Um, and this dude talk a lot of Ooh, he talked trash, but I loved it. That's competition. That's just how we were. But it was a lot of fun growing up and just looking back and seeing the times I had with people like Chad Boseman, as well as some other pretty notable people that I grew up with. There's another guy named Sean Ellis. Sean Ellis is now a former NFL All-Pro. I don't know if he'll get into the Hall of Fame, but he had a heck of a career. He played for about 10 years, I believe. And yeah, Sean was this snotty-nosed kid that grew up with me, but you look at him on the field, he was a monster, an absolute monster of an athlete, But yeah, Chad, and just growing up with him and seeing what he was doing was just unbelievable. And, when we graduated high school and moved on to college, a lot of us, we split off and we lose ties and connections and things like that. So I wasn't able to really keep in touch with him or anything, but I did keep in touch with his sister. And she kept us abreast on some of the stuff that he was working on. She was always bragging about her brother working on this film and working on that play and all of that. And as I'm watching this over the years, I'm like, damn, Chad is starting to blow up. He's really making a name for himself. And next thing I know, I saw him he was doing Thurgood Marshall and doing Jackie Robinson and doing James Brown. And then Black Panther hit. And that was like when it just really, really struck a nerve with me personally. I can't speak for everybody else in our area because everybody's proud of him. But being able to see a black man as a superhero was something I never thought I'd see. Just never thought of it. Not that it was racist or anything like that. It's just, it wasn't part of the norm here in the South, or heck, just in the US. It just wasn't part of the normal mainstream media. And to see what he did and parlayed that into just bigger and better things, it just really hit home for a lot of us and just made us all so proud, and also inspired a lot of us to just continue to stick to your dreams and work at it. That's the thing a lot of people tend to forget, is you can have your dreams and you can dream as big as you want, but most people don't freaking work at it. They won't work as big as they dream. And he clearly put in the work, and he clearly held on to all of his convictions. There's a story of him being an actor on this soap opera, and the role that he was playing was this, and I'm not going to say a thug, but it was a black man that was a little bit sketchy, just really putting more of that message out there that all black men do is just lie and cheat on their women and don't take care of their kids or don't work and yada, yada, yada. And he was like, you know what? I'm not feeling this role. And he professionally went to leadership and let them know, I'm not feeling this. Can we do something different besides this particular narrative? And they professionally disagreed, and he was let go from that scene. And he didn't whine about it. He didn't cry about it or go public and get all over social media and blah, blah, blah. You know how people do with especially today's cancel culture. He didn't do none of that. He said, you know what? I'm going to write my own damn stories. And he did. He got more into writing and creating the story himself. And it just further, boost him up in his professional career, as well as get more eyeballs. And it kept opening more and more doors. And next thing you know, Marvel was reaching out to him, and yeah, we need a Black Panther. we need a black hero. Let's do this. And he was the perfect man for it.
Definitely. I mean, I say this all the time that if you don't write your own stories, someone else will write it for you. So
So true.
you know, I mean, especially in this situation where especially in light of everything that's been happening the last few years, representation does matter.
Mm-hmm. Sure does. Sure does. But yeah, I really did just, enjoyed that time growing up there in the South. Now, don't get me wrong, it had some times that was pretty craptastic for me.
Sure.
But there's a lot of things that I look at now as an adult, that's oldish, and say, you know what, I'm glad I experienced this. I was glad I was able to show my children that and things like that, because it's different there. I'm now here in Northern California, which is a whole other planet for me. It's not just a different state. This is a whole different planet living out here. And
What's been the biggest adjustment so far?
this is going to sound bad. How nice people are.
Oh wow.
I'd go to the grocery store, the neighborhood, excuse me, the neighborhood Walmart, and the people were just so helpful when I was going in just to get a carton of eggs or something, from looking for a bag of chips or something. It's just, those employees were so daggum helpful. And it wasn't just the older people, it was the younger people. And it caught me off guard, because I took it as, man, these people are just watching me because they think I'm going to steal something, because that's the environment that I came up in, and it's nothing like that at all. It's just, it totally blew my mind, and I still fight it a little bit. And it's almost 2 years now since moving over here. I'm still trying to get used to it, because I lived with people just being so rude. They talk about the Southern charm, you hear that moniker out there a lot. But there's also a whole lot of hate and just people just being flat out rude for no damn reason, because you're a tall, bald headed black dude,
Mm-hmm.
so you get a lot of fear. And so people will act a certain way, but over here it's totally different. It's been totally different. And some of the conversations that we've had with neighbors and coworkers, and they were, quite frankly, oblivious to some of the stuff that my family and I has lived through. Blew their minds. They'd heard about it here and there, read about it here and there. But it's like, nah, that ain't happening. Until we tell them, nah, dude, real talk. This is the world that we grew up in. And part of the reason why I wanted to leave the South was just, I was tired of the way I was treated, and tired of,
Mm-hmm.
just tired of the environment. And I just wanted to get up out of there socially. That is, tired of the environment socially, because there's still a lot of things over there that I love. But especially back in 2016, when we had that other president, seems like people got a lot more cocky and just a lot more rude, and just want to say and do anything they could to people that look like me, regardless of their backgrounds. It was just too much for me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting up out of here and just trying to find my own peace. And I've had my opportunity.
That's good to hear. Now, growing up, you played a lot of sports. You mentioned football and basketball.
Yep.
Um, uh, when you played horse against Chad, who got the better of each other?
Well, I was football, basketball, and track. I played sports year round, because I love being busy. But far as basketball with Chad, nah, he wasn't playing horse. Chad was playing 1-on-1, and he was whooping
Uh,
everybody. Period.
I see.
That's just how it was. He's playing 1-on-1, and he's going to whoop you. And he's going to tell you he's going to whoop you too.
Wow.
He was so good. He was such an athlete, man, such an athlete. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
His athletic expression in the Black Panther. I mean, you can sort of
You
see
could see it,
that.
right? He's
Yeah,
built for that stuff, for that choreography.
right.
He was built for that. So true.
Hmm. Um, Now you mentioned that, like Chad, you were also interested in the arts growing up.
Yeah.
You mentioned drawing and you played the keyboard.
Yep.
So, what got you interested in to go in that direction?
Well, I really don't know what pulled me into music, but as I got older, I started to look back and saw that there was a couple other instrumental people, no pun intended, in my life that was also into music, and I think it just rubbed off like osmosis, and I just couldn't help myself. But yeah, I was an athlete, but I was also in band. I played saxophones, and I wanted a piano as a kid. For whatever reason, I wanted a piano, but of course we couldn't afford a daggone piano. Um, but my mother, she bought me a Yamaha electronic keyboard and said, "Well, here, you could have this." And it was one of the best presents ever, ever. And I would just slap around on that thing and try to figure out what this sound makes and started sampling and doing all of that. And I just love the idea of just creating something from scratch or even trying to replicate something that I heard. And then as a like a primary school kid or an elementary school kid, um, doodling, would happen because that's just a kid's attention span. You don't just sit in class and pay attention to the teacher 100% of the time. That's just not possible for a child. So you're going to doodle. And I would doodle from time to time in the middle of class and notice that things looked okay. That actually does look similar to a person's head, or that actually does look similar to a pencil or whatever. And I just stuck to it, and I would draw more in my free time and got better and better over the years. And of course I got criticized as I got older because everything was grayscale. I did everything in pencil. There was never any color.
Hmm.
And when I got to high school into my art class there, my last year, the art teacher, who happened to also be one of my coaches, he gave me a hard time because, I mean, he just tells it like it is, as most coaches do. Most coaches in athletics they're stern and firm, but they're also loving too,
Right.
and they know how to speak to their athletes and get the most out of those athletes. The good ones do, without being demeaning or anything like that, but they can still be stern and just straight up. And he told me, he says, "You know what? This is not as good as you think it is. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but this is not as good as you think it is. You need some color." And I fought him. I was like, "Man, I don't like color. I just don't." And he pushed me and he pushed me and he pushed me. And then I started adding color, whether it's with the chalks or whatever, and or with paint, and slowly started to get more and more into it. And it made a big difference in my creativity and just how I could see things. Because when you have color, then you start thinking about, okay, when this was in grayscale, I had to really concentrate on shading because of the way light hits things. So now how can I take that part of what I learned and apply it to color? Because just because something in color, that doesn't mean there's no light there. You still need to have shadows and things like that. And it really just things just started to click for me then.
Hmm. I'm sure those formative lessons played a big part in, I guess, your attraction eventually to photography.
Yeah, it did. And the photography thing came about more so because of the geeky side in me. I
Mm.
was the kid that also tore up stuff and then put it back together. Uh, Parents didn't like me doing that, but I eventually, I eventually figured out how to put things back together. And again, that's another one of those osmosis things, because people in my family, that I cared about the most, they were the same way. My grandfather was a musician, but my grandfather was also an auto mechanic for all of my life. So he liked art. He liked to play songs in church and play his guitar, but he also liked to pull a carburetor apart, or put in a new transmission for a car and stuff like that. So I mean, it's he was on both sides of that spectrum, and it just sort of rubbed off on me. I wasn't at the same scale that he was, but I liked taking the boom box and trying to figure out why it wasn't working, or I don't know, just taking things apart. And my grandmother had a camera. I wish I could remember what it was. I think it was.
I was about to ask you that.
It was a Nikon. I wish I could remember what it was, but it was just a tiny, like a point and shoot body. It was film, but it was like a point and shoot body. And I enjoyed playing with it, and the mechanics of it, of winding film, and that just fascinated me. And then one day I dropped it and it broke. And when I picked it up, I was scared shitless. Oh crap, my grandma's gonna kill me, because I broke the camera. But then I was also at the same state of mind of, I wonder if I can fix this. And so I started to dig into the mechanics of why do these things work the way they work? And it just sort of grew from there. And then when digital came, it was a little less, more mechanics for me, but it was still a bit geeky for me to understand that, okay, there's this image sensor in here. There's no film now. And this sensor it's got millions of little dots on it, these photons on it, and they react a certain way if I push this button here or move this slider there, and and it just kept growing from there. But then time went on, and I put the camera down because I was getting busy with some other stuff, and the smartphones started to blow up. The droids came out and things like that, and I got my hands on the Motorola Droid X, and it had a camera on it. It had a 720p video camera. I think it was 18 megapixels for stills, I think. And I remember shooting with this thing, just goofing off and thinking, well, damn, this thing looks pretty good, and I kept shooting more random things, and then I started to be a little bit more intentional about it when I shot things, and it just really sparked it inside of me, just brought it back, my interest in photography, and I haven't looked back since. And I was one to preach that, yes, I had a point and shoot camera at the time, but I was using that smartphone more than I was using that point and shoot camera. And that point and shoot camera was clearly the air quotes better camera device. Right. But I was using that smartphone and was pulling out some pretty cool stuff with it. And I just kept trying to just champion that and tell people, y'all got these phones. Just use these phones. Stop buying these expensive cameras when you got a phone right here that's just as good.
Right. And shout out to my friend Susie Botello.
Miss Susie, I love her.
She's a founder of the National Mobile Film Festival, of which I'm a Brown ambassador for. That's how I met Ant. She had interviewed you on her podcast, and she started sharing a lot of your social media posts. So shout out to Susie.
I love Miss Susie. She's great.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's definitely a force of nature.
That's so true.
Now, looks like 7 years ago, you also started a smartphone photographers community.
Yep.
I guess it was back in the Google Plus days.
Yep.
You want to sort of share that?
Yeah. And again, it was right around the time of me having that smartphone in my hand and thinking, this thing is pretty nice. And with Google Plus, I had no idea what I was doing with Google Plus because I'm not the most social person. I'm highly introverted. I don't use social media nowhere near the way people use social media today. It's you don't see a lot from me that's super personal. I just don't care to share it like that. Mm-hmm. And when I got into Google Plus, I found that there were a lot of people just like me on Google Plus. So it was sort of safe, And then it had these communities, and I said, well, let me see if I can check out these communities. And there was tons of photography communities, just amazing photographers out there, including people like Mr. Trey Ratcliffe, who I can now call a friend. I'm so blessed to say that. But people like that were out there, and I said, well, okay, I'm not really shooting DSLR stuff or mirrorless stuff. I'm shooting more smartphone. I said, well, what kind of smartphone photography communities are out there? And there were a handful, and I hung out in them here and there, but I didn't really get anything out of it. So I said, you know what, I'll just start my own. Just start my own smartphone photography community. And if a couple of my friends here on Google Plus want to join, cool. And I wanted it to be a legit community, not just somewhere to post your shots. And I wanted it to also be where if you post your shots in there, I want the people of the community to say something other than nice shot. And the only way to do that was to help, educate people on what was shot, how it was shot, why it was shot that way, what would happen if they shot it this other way, what would happen if they shot it with this other phone, what would happen, what would happen if they did the post processing this way versus that way. And it just sort of just turned into a bit of a tutorial session and education session. And it wasn't just me, it was the other members started to chip in too, to say, you know what, there's other styles of photography out there. Let's dive into it. And, so it wasn't just shooting portraits, it was shooting still life. It was shooting chiaroscuro, going out shooting cityscapes, and just really trying to grow the education of photography, but put it in the package and comfort of a smartphone. And I did that for, I guess it was 2 years or so. I don't know. It seems like it was a little while. And I finally let it go because it turned into, I was doing all the work, quite frankly. And it also turned into, I was doing so much work on this and putting so much time into it. The community just sort of fizzled. People were not engaging as they once were. And I'm not saying that they needed to be engaging with me, but I wanted it to be a community. I wanted to be able to pop in there and see that there were conversations going on, whether I was in the conversation or not. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to shut this down. And I made an announcement that I'm going to shut this down on such and such day. And I'm going to move on and keep doing what I do, because I still believe in this and believe in this craft. And I'm just going to, move on and parlay it into something else. And I remember after the final shutdown happened, it was months later, I'd get random messages. Hey, I can't get into the community. And I'm like, that's why this community doesn't exist anymore, because I said a gazillion times prior to shutting it down that I'm going to shut it down, and here's why I'm going to shut it down. So you're just, further proving that that community did not need to exist anymore, because you wasn't getting enough in it to be engaged, and nobody else was, apparently. And I'm burning a lot of hours, and I can burn those hours doing something else, more so from my own feeding and contribution. So that's what I did.
Nice. Now, how did you get involved with Twit TV?
Well, with Twit, they had me on a couple of years ago. I wrote a piece for Tech Republic. CBS Interactive owns Tech Republic. Well, at least they used to. I think somebody else owns them now. Tech Republic as well as CNET. And I was writing freelance articles for CNET, not CNET, for Tech Republic. And I started out writing for them based on enterprise IT stuff, just little quick hitter tips and tricks, because that's what their crowd is. And my two editors in chief, Mr. Jason Heiner, Mr. Bill Detweiler, they pretty much came to me and said, dude, you're good at photography. You want to talk about any of that stuff? I was like, heck yeah, because I'm really sick of talking about IT stuff, I was so burned out on IT. My professional career for most of my life was enterprise IT support. I went from working tier 1 to managing tier 1 teams to getting out of management and going into upper tier support, like tier 2, and just working with code and staring at databases and all of that stuff all day long. And I enjoyed it, but I was burned out because, again, me being an introvert and not necessarily the most people person that you'll find, I struggled with a lot of that stuff, the dynamics of being a good employee. You're not going to call me up and say, this computer just did this on its own. No, computers are very, very binary. They do what you tell them to do. If you click on it, it's going to have a reaction because that's just binary. And I got tired of that argument. And then forgetting passwords, that's probably my biggest pet peeve. That one just
Oh yeah.
like, come on, you type it in every single day. How do you forget it? And even if you forget it, you still have the muscle memory of typing passwords. So yeah, I had no
It's funny. You
patience.
still remind me. You still remind me of my corporate days when I'd hang out with all the salespeople
Mm-hmm.
and also the IT people.
Mm-hmm.
I'd made sure that they were having fun. I'd buy them a few rounds here and there. So
Yep.
whenever I needed something,
Yep.
they were always willing to help me.
Yep. That's how you do it. That's how you build relationships. I totally
Right.
respect. But yeah, Tech Republic, they said, well, would you like to write for us and do the IT stuff? And I said, sure. But then they saw that I could shoot and create decent photographs, somewhat decent. They said, well, why not start talking about that? Because that's tech. So why not talk about that? And I said, well, thank you, please. And thank you. And just blew up from there. Got some relationships with Adobe through that, and got a relationship with Twit because they saw one of my articles, because Twit stands for This Week in Tech. That's our network. Twit TV is the network. And so it's always consumer technology, enterprise technology, a lot of different shows with varying subjects, but it's all based on tech. And so when they saw one of my articles, it was about drones and drone photography. And I was invited to do a segment on Tech News Today. And it was just great. And they offered to have me on later on another show. And I ended up being on This Week in Google as a guest one day. And that was way over my head when I look back at it. And heck, quite frankly, it still is a bit over my head because it's so journalistic. And those people are so smart, way smarter than I am. but apparently I made a good impression. And then later I was invited to be on the flagship show, Twit, This Week in Tech, which happens every Sunday at about 2:00 Pacific time. And I was beside myself because I've been a Twit fan for, I don't know, from probably almost 10 years or so, if not more. And just being able to be on that network for anything, it just really blew my mind. And then getting that call to be on the flagship show, that was like nerdgasm, and apparently I did okay on that because they offered to have me back on at another point in time, over the years. So that's just how I was able to build that relationship. And Miss Lisa, our CEO, she liked what I brought to the table and wanted to offer me a position. And at the time, I wouldn't have taken it when she originally had the thought. So she held off on it. And I'm glad she held off on it because the timing wasn't right for me. And so they came back to me again in 2019. And that was the right time. So I was like, yes, I am honored, honored to be a part of this. And it just worked out.
Hence the move to Northern California.
Yep. And that meant that I needed to leave the Carolinas. At the time, I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and needed to leave the Carolinas to come over here, uproot my family, which is something ridiculously hard to do. I don't know how much time we got, but when I got the message about the position, to come to Twit. I thought it was a prank. I thought they would, I remember holding my phone up to the missus here, and I said, I just got this message from Twit, but I think they're full of shit. So I don't know. I'm gonna call their bluff. Basically, is what I said. And so I messaged back like, sure, yeah, we could chat. And dude, we were on the phone the next day. The next day, and then I'm like, oh, this is real. This is real. And so, we talked about it, and I had to tell her, I said, look, this is not just moving 2 hours away. This is not just moving 5 hours away. You're leaving your family behind. This is going to be a struggle. I don't know if you're ready for this. Are you ready for this? Can you do this? I wasn't worried so much about the boys because again, it was the timing thing, because where they were with school. My oldest boy was going to have 2 more years left in high school, and the youngest was going to be getting ready for high school. So it was perfect time to transition because everything's going to be new anyway. So just the perfect time. But as an adult, leaving your mother behind, leaving your cousins and sisters and blah, 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 that could be pretty big. For me, it wasn't as big. My mom, I love my mom, tight with my moms. My sister, yes. My nephew, yes. But not much of anything else, family-wise, was keeping me there. Because they just weren't close. We're just not close like that. We didn't really get down that way. Couldn't relate. That whole 33% dork, 33% nerd. They can't relate to me and I can't relate to them. And it is what it is. I love them, but I don't sit here and say I miss them because I know they don't miss me either. It's just I was 2 hours away from them and never saw them for a couple of years. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the 33% dork. I was wondering if that was from you or from your wife.
that was
Who
me.
gave you that?
I am what I am, dude. That's the thing. I have self-awareness unlike any other brother. Trust me. I know I am. I know I have dork in me. I accepted that many years ago.
I mentioned your boys. I think congrats to your eldest. He won a long jump competition, if I'm correct.
Oh man, actually, no, that was the youngest.
Oh, the youngest.
Yeah, the
Okay.
youngest man, he had a heck of a year, athletically as well as academically. My other boy, my senior boy, he graduated from high school just this past weekend. Very, very proud of him. He's had a very nice career athletically and academically as well. He's heading to college soon. Still trying to figure out who else can pay for this thing because I can't. So if y'all want to send a couple bucks to Aunt Pruitt's college fund, please and thank you. No, just kidding. But yeah, the freshman hardhead is now the fastest kid here in this region, Northern California region. He won the 100-meter dash, he won the 200-meter dash, and he won the long jump. And he placed third on the relay, the 4x100 relay, which I don't think they would have won the 4x100 relay, but they may have gotten close. Because my senior boy, he's normally on the relay as well, and they had to put in a substitute for him because he's been battling a hamstring injury, and right now he needs to focus on getting healthy because he's going to college because of track and field. And if you can't perform when you get to college, they're like, look here, we're going to take our money back.
Right.
So he's focusing on trying to stay healthy for the next couple of months. And so when they put in an alternate, it's just not as fast. It makes a big difference. And they got third place. So yeah, my freshman, he's got 4 medals in his first high school championship meet. He just had a heck of a year in track. He had a heck of a year in football as well, playing quarterback for the junior varsity. And it would not surprise me if he's the varsity quarterback next year. It would not surprise me.
Wow, multi-sport athlete, just like his old man.
Yeah, they're getting there. They're getting there. And it's funny. We joke. I know the one that just graduated, he he was on a mission to just try to do better than me athletically. I've heard him say that when he was a lot younger. My mother has heard him say that. He just wasn't able to stay as healthy, unfortunately. But I will give him credit. He does have a football championship ring. I do not. So he got me on that one, but I got him on the other things. Now this freshman boy, yeah, he might surpass. He might, because he's got a good pace going. He's got his championship already. I didn't get my track championship till I was in the 11th grade. He got one as a freshman. So we'll see.
I guess while we're talking about your boys and being athletes, um, like athletes, practicing makes you better.
Yep.
How do you practice personally as a digital content creator?
Oh man. By embarrassing and annoying the crap out of my family. Real talk, Aaron. Real talk. When I got more serious about my photography, the camera went with me everywhere. Period. That Droid X was always with me, and that point and shoot was eventually always with me. So I was shooting stuff every single day, all the time. And that pretty much hasn't changed to this day. It takes just continuous work and practice at it. And you're going to have some bad practice too. They say practice makes perfect. Yeah, that doesn't work if your practice is horrible. If you practice horrible habits, then you're not going to get to perfection. So you have to sort of temper it and understand the nuance of, okay, I can do this just up to this point, but then I need to try to move into something else to really step my game up. So
Hmm.
yeah, I annoyed my family for a couple of years. They got tired of seeing me with the camera. They got tired of me telling them to stand here and hold this and yada yada yada. Now they're just all sort of used to it. Um, they don't really think twice about it. Every now and then, especially since this pandemic kicked off in 2020, it's hard for me to do certain projects because I can't get a model, and I'm here in this new area. I don't know people. So I'm not quite comfortable going out and trying to recruit people as little models while I review these cameras. So that meant I had to lean on myself and lean on my family. And they didn't mind it because they got some good files out of it that they can use for whatever they want to use. It's just the only caveat was those files were going to be seen by thousands of people that watched the show,
Hmm.
so.
That's another thing I was going to ask you about. Like, how do you stay current in terms of, I guess, technology and information?
It's getting harder now. I've had to focus more so nowadays. At one point in time, it was just throwing out a big old net and just grabbing everything from the tech news standpoint. And now I don't care as much because I have some personal issues with things as far as I get capitalism and people wanting to make more money. Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with the iPhone costing $1,200, but a brand new laptop could cost you about $800, you know?
Right.
And so I try not to look at all of the tech news anymore. Now, granted, I'm on This Week in Google, which is our big tech show on Wednesdays, roundtable big tech discussion, where we discuss the likes of Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, and everything that's going on around that. And so I do look at some of the bigger, broad stroke things, and so I can be prepared for that show. But I don't dive into it nowhere near the way I used to. Now I focus more towards stuff on the camera side of things. What's Canon doing, and what's Sony doing, and Nikon, and these lenses are coming out. What does this new lens mean, and who is it for? Who is it not for? And so it makes it a lot easier to just really focus and just plug away researching every day to see what's out there and see what this photographer is doing, what this photographer is not doing, and why they're not doing it, and things of that nature. So it's easier if you really focus it down instead of just broad on everything out there. I think, quite frankly, I think that's what's wrong with media today. It's so broad, and everybody's attention spans are just crap, including those doing the research. It's so bad. So you end up with a lot of link baity, clickbaity stuff that makes no sense. You end up with a lot of fear mongering stories that make no sense. And yeah, no, just not my jam.
Right. Your videos always look so good and sound good. What kind of gear do you use?
All right. This is overkill. This is totally overkill for what I do. I know this. But I have a Logitech C920, I believe. I do have that webcam, and that thing is absolutely fine. If you have lighting, no one would ever know you're using a webcam with that thing. But I have lighting. I have a couple different studio lights in here from Godox. I can't remember the models. I have a bunch of different soft boxes. I usually use this one 36-inch round parabolic softbox because it's just a much more flattering light. And then my primary camera, I actually have two. I have an overhead camera that is a Canon M50, not M50, it's a M200. It's a little small mirrorless, but I use it as an overhead cam or as a B camera here and there, depending on what I'm shooting. And the primary camera is a Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 6K.
What about for your audio?
Audio, we use Howe PR40s. I was using my own old dynamic mic. They don't even make this mic anymore. I think it's called a Legacy LS60 or something, LSM60. They don't even make them anymore. But it sounded great, and it was cheap. I don't even think I paid $100 for it. And we were using it for a while, but Twit says, no, let's just keep everything uniform. So they gave me this Howe PR40 because that's what all the other hosts are using, and just want to make everything uniform. I get that. That's branding. But I use the Howe PR40, and that is going into a Sound Devices Mix Pre 3 Mark II, which is an amazing piece of audio capture equipment. It's expensive, man. It's expensive, but oh my goodness, it's so top notch. You get so much more dynamic range on it. If you're recording somebody and they are just too hot, sometimes you don't catch that they're too hot, and you go to pull it up in post, and it's just crushing your speakers. But because this thing has so much dynamic range in it, you can pull it down and recover all of the beautiful detail and lose the clipping. And vice versa. If they're too low, you can pull them up and not capture a ton of noise and still get really good quality. And plus, it's super portable. You can, every now and then, I'll attach it to my cinema camera if I want to actually capture audio through the cinema camera. Just run the mic through that, and then run it into the camera as the audio interface, and it's just perfect. But again, it's expensive. You get what you pay for. I think the thing is like $600 just for the box alone. So,
oh wow.
But again, that's something that at Twit we said we need to standardize on having really, really good audio and good video. We don't worry as much as about video. We do want you to look good, but podcast world is all about audio first. Get that audio first. Even though my show is a photography based show, I still get probably 60-40 audio versus video in my consumption. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's a horn blaring in the background. Somebody's car is being annoyed, apparently.
Hopefully it's not your car.
Yeah, that's the thing. I should probably look on my little camera outside. Oh, now it stopped. Okay, so it wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Pre-pandemic, I was definitely more audio than video, but now that I'm home, I'm definitely consuming more video than audio.
For me, I've always been on the video side of things. When I became a fan of Twit umpteen years ago, I remember waiting on daggum RSS feeds for the WMV files to pop up,
Yeah.
and so I could watch them on my computer and just see what the set looked like and see the facial expressions and things like that. It's I was always into video, and I had this old BlackBerry phone that I would listen to them on it, but I would much rather sit on my couch on my with my computer on the desktop there and watch all the shows.
Yeah, well, at the time, I did have an hour commute in the morning, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I had to commute too. I had to commute too, but I wanted my podcast and I wanted to watch it because they were talking about this new laptop. So I wanted to see what this
gotcha.
laptop
Right.
looked like. You know, you can describe it, and Mr. Leo Laporte is one of the best at it, as far as describing things and giving you a painting a picture, audibly. But at the same time, I want to see that thing. When they say, "Man, you should see the bezels on this thing. They're like 3 inches thick." I can imagine that, but it's not the same as seeing it on the screen.
Now, what does create and dominate mean to you, and what is a typical day like for you?
Create and dominate. I think I have gotten people a little. I've turned some people off with that, but that phrase, I don't. Some people assume that it means go out there and just create some content and just dominate the opposition. That's not what it means. What it means is, yes, every day I am trying to create some type of content, whether it's something for work, whether it's something for me. Every day I'm trying to create some content. The dominate part of it is my mode of operation is I need to dominate whatever it is I'm doing. If it is sitting down here at this computer and Adobe Audition decides to just wig out on me for some reason, I need to dominate Adobe Audition and figure out why it's wigging out and get it to do what I need it to do. If it's this camera that I'm working with and I'm shooting this scene and it's just not quite looking right, I need to dominate that scenario. Okay. Do I need to change the lighting? Do I need to change the angles of the subject? Just dominate whatever it is that you're dealing with at the time. Every single day when I get up, it's I set the tone by getting up, brushing my teeth, washing my face, and things like that. But I'll drop and do some squats and do some push-ups, and then as I walk down my stairs to go grab my first beverage or whatever, I slap these signs on my wall, and one of them says, you know, how are you going to dominate today? And I slap it because I'm setting the tone, because we're going to be throwing a bunch of curveballs in day-to-day life, and things are going to try to trip you up, but you got to be able to overcome that. And a lot of people, unfortunately, this day and age, in my opinion, haven't quite figured out a way to just overcome whatever's thrown at them. Most people tend to just crack and give up, and that's just not me. So yeah, when you see me say dominate, I mean dominate. When you see me say create and dominate, I mean it. Get up, create something, and dominate it.
Now, what's a typical day like for you? Like, how do you balance work and family life and all that?
That's still a work in progress, sir, because I don't know if I've quite done it just yet. I've definitely gotten better. Because in the beginning of really pushing myself to get more towards a creative career, um, you have to put more into it, because I was in the middle of an IT career, and IT was paying the bills. The creating the content creation stuff was not paying my bills. So I had to work harder on the content creation side, whether it's, shooting videos or more shots or whatever. I had to put more time in it and put more time into post processing and understanding what happens if I click this and that or whatever. And that meant taking away time from the family. And I had to have a moment with them to say, look, I'm sorry. I am going to do better, but please understand, but this is part of the big picture. I'm trying to do something better for myself. And if I win, we all win. And I still believe that, and I think they finally get it too. That if dad's doing good, we gonna do good too. So they just let me be, and just let me, spend time studying, spend time working. But I've gotten better. I have more cutoff times set up. Far as, okay, step out of the studio, go, and just go. I don't care if it's go sitting on the couch, but get out of the studio. Because if I'm in the studio, I'm going to be tinkering. And just really stick to that. But I'll spend, I get in here every morning. I need to be in here by 8 a.m. every morning, but it's usually way earlier than that. I'm usually in here by 6, which is not good. I should be resting more, but my sleep problems is another story. But I'm usually in here by 6, and then I get up and I'll go walk, just to get some exercise in. I hate cardio, but it's good for you. So I'll go.
I love walking.
Oh gosh, I love it from a therapeutic mental side
Right.
of it, but
Mhm.
man, I hate cardio. Give me some barbells. Give me.
I do miss the gym. I mean, once I get my second shot, I'm definitely gonna look into getting back to the gym.
Same here, brother. I've been looking actually, but yeah, that's another thing. Is I get up and I do my walk, and I have my camera with me. That's the saving grace. Is I usually have my camera with me, whether it's the phone or one of my cameras that I shoot with. And then I get back in here, have my coffee, and I will sit down and I will work and work on the show, production wise, trying to plan things, what I want to do for this forthcoming episode. How am I going to do it? I'll do trial runs and rehearse and things like that. Because I'm not as good as everybody else. I know this. I need to practice. I need to rehearse. And if I know I am going to be talking about, say, like at the time of recording this episode right now with you, it's going to be a long exposure and light painting discussion. So I need to practice looking into the camera and going over my points about long exposure and light painting, the differences of it. And I'll do that 2 or 3 times until it feels right, you know. And just keep rehearsing. And then if I want to do like a lab show, I'll walk, I'll draw on paper how I want to set up my lightings, where I want to set the cameras, where I want to set my switchers, and get the mics and stuff squared away, and just really plan through it and spend some time on it. And this is a day's work. It's just planning out future episodes and responding to emails, responding to feedback emails from the listeners and fans, because I tell them to send me their stuff and they send it. So they send it. So I'm going to honor that as long as I can, as long as I'm able to anyway, and give them feedback, because that's what this is about. I want to be able to help the people consuming my show to get better at photography and get better at post-processing. And if they don't have any feedback, they're not going to know. Because sometimes the feedback that you're giving yourself is like, yeah, this looks pretty good. I don't know, dude. Maybe not. You could do this a little bit better. Or sometimes the feedback that you're getting from your family is not necessarily the feedback you need, whether it's good or bad. It helps hearing it from someone else that's outside of the room, outside of the family, outside of your scope of normal people that you deal with. And I like getting feedback and from total strangers, if you will, because it's going to help me get better.
Now, how far in advance do you plan out your episodes?
Usually it's a week at a time, but here recently, I've gotten a little bit ahead, because Mr. Aaron, I don't know. I don't know what I did differently, but man, I got in a groove, and I'm about a month ahead right now with what I want to happen each week. I'm about a month ahead now. There's still a lot of finer points that I'll need to do prior to that stuff airing and going out to the masses, but just from a planning standpoint, I can look right now. This month is already set. All I got to do is just get ready to execute. And
Mhm.
yeah, that hasn't happened before, but I'm going to roll with it and and keep going with the momentum, and continue to try to balance it out with, um, what is it, work life relationship stuff.
Right. Now that you're at Twit full time, I guess, are you doing production on your own episodes 100%, or do you have a team
It's a
that's helping you?
team. It's a team, man. And thank God for the team, man. My editor, Mr. Victor, oh, he's always making me look and sound good. And I love working with him because he gets my vision for the show. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, when I was offered this role at Twit to be a host at Twit, I was offered the opportunity to create a photography show. And I told him, okay, I'd love to create a show, but I want to be able to create a show that's going to be some tips and tricks, and every now and then hit on some topical stuff that's in the photography news or whatever. But I really want this to be loose. I want this to be something that's relatable to anybody. And I don't want my show targeted to the professional photographers. I refuse to do that. And the Laportes were like, have at it. It's your show. And I am so grateful for that. And when I'm able to speak with Mr. Victor, he gets the vision. So the things that we do in post processing, as far as editing the show, it's relatable. And, he knows what visuals to pop up for me from a B-roll standpoint to really drive it home. And he knows the pacing and things like that. And he, even down to the thumbnails, we work at this stuff, dude. Even if your thumbnail is crap, you've already lost that game, dude. Because if they won't even click on the thumbnail, you never hear your show. So
Yeah, I see a lot of Roberto Blake's videos, and he talks about thumbnails a lot too.
yep, I love Roberto. He's such a cool cat.
That is pretty cool. Have you met him in person?
Haven't met him in person yet. But I have had the pleasure of speaking with him here and there over the years, and
Nice.
he's always been quite receptive. And it's always nice when I see little notifications with his little icon on it, because it's like, oh, Roberto's checking me out today. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty cool when I see that.
That is pretty cool.
Like, oh, Roberto's checking me out today.
Yeah, sometimes I'll check out his Twitch channel, and we'll kind of have like a back and forth about pop culture stuff.
Oh man, he's big on that. Good grief. But another thing I like about Roberto is he's brutally honest.
Yeah.
And man, I really wish more people could latch on to that, because again, this is me saying, just showing that I'm not quite the people person, is because most of the time I'm brutally honest, and that turns people off. But for whatever reason, the Twit family loves me, and I'm so grateful for that. I get so many messages about just keep being who you are. We love you for who you are, and we love what you do, and we love how you present it this way, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, if someone submits a photo and they tell me I have their permission to talk about it on the air, and I do talk about it on the air, I'm going to give them the good and the bad with it, because that's the only way you're going to get better. If you send me this picture and it's got a lopsided horizon line, I'm already going to rip you right from the gate, because you already know, as a fan of the show, horizon lines got to be straight unless you're purposely going with a Dutch angle. So that's just a small pet peeve detail that I will call you out on, because hopefully it's going to help you get better at paying attention to some details in your shot and your composition.
Definitely. Yeah. If anybody's listening to this episode, I encourage them, especially if you're thinking about getting into photography, check out your show, Hands On Photography. There's definitely a lot of helpful information on there.
Yes, please do. I really do appreciate that.
I guess we'll take a break and do a thunder round, which is our random round of questions. My first question is, what kind of pop culture were you into as a teenager? I think you have a connection with Star Wars through your father, right?
Yes, man. Yes. Star Wars, hands down. Oh my gosh, dude. Star Wars. I have so many fond memories with that franchise, and yeah, I didn't get to see the very first one in the theater because I'm not that old. Um, but I remember seeing Empire, and I remember seeing Return of the Jedi in the theaters as a kid, and it was just so fond of having that time with my dad. So my mom's didn't take me, she cared less, but my dad, he wanted to see it and he wanted to take me. And my mom and dad were separated and divorced at an early age for me, but I saw both parents. Lived with my mom, but I was fortunate enough to still be able to see my father on a fairly regular basis. He still had his issues. Boy, he was a character, but I did see my dad, and memories of going to the theater and seeing Jabba the Hutt on the screen just still sticks out in my head to this day. Um, yeah, Star Wars, hands down, dude. And not the last one. I believe it was um, the next to the last one that just come out. Now I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it had me in tears just seeing um, Carrie Fisher on the screen,
Right.
and and oh gosh, mm. Seeing her on the screen and Harrison Ford, and it just brought me back, and I was like, damn, I miss my dad. Just and just those memories of seeing her on the screen, and just how much I enjoyed it back then, and now they've aged and have gone on, and oh boy, yeah, Star Wars, hands down.
Now, I'm curious, what attracted you to Jabba the Hutt?
My dad was a bit of a uh, he was a bit of a weirdo, and he just liked size. He was a former athlete as well, and he just seemed to have a respect for people of girth. Just girth meant power, I guess. I don't know, but he always just liked Jabba the Hutt for some reason, even though Jabba the Hutt's a freaking gangster. He just like just like Jabba the Hutt, and he would always talk about it. But yeah, that's my only
Uh,
tie.
what's your favorite beer at the moment?
Oh, it's one that's hard to get, and I believe it's called Pliny the
The
Elder.
Elder?
Yeah,
The Elder.
Pliny
I
the
think I've had
Elder.
that one.
I had the pleasure of getting their other ones here in the area because they're just down the road from the house. The brewery is, and yeah, they are really good. They are really good. But there's so many beers here in Sonoma County. That's something that I'm really enjoying and trying to just consume more of, not as an alcoholic way or anything, but I like beer. I use the Untapped service because I've had so many different beers. I don't like to repeat getting a beer. I want it because
Oh,
now that I know that there's something out there, I want it. I don't want to have the same beer over and over again. And that's pretty much what Untapped has done for me. I could pull it up and say, okay, have I had this before? Yes or no? Most of the time, I know if I've had it before, which is another scary thing. Now that I think about it, I shouldn't know labels like that. I shouldn't know these names like that, but I do. But yeah, right now, Pliny is probably that's probably the one. It's probably the one. It used to be. I used to really love New Belgium's Ranger IPA, and I still love IPAs. But yeah, that Pliny was that was next level.
well, if you ever come to San Diego, there's a bunch of microbreweries over here.
Yeah, I know. It's all California and Oregon. There's so many different beers. Um, where I was from in the Carolinas, we had Asheville, and there's a lot of beers coming out of Asheville, so I had access to that. But it's nowhere near the amount of beers that over here in this state, in this region. Nowhere, not even close. It's crazy. I'm looking at my Untapped now, and it looks like I've had 731 different beers.
Wow. I should get on that app. I'm curious to see how many I've had.
It's ridiculous, man. Really? Come on, Ant. You got to do better. 731 different beers. Wow.
Crazy. If you could describe yourself with one word, what would it be?
Genuine.
Nice. Um, being the tinkerer that you are, um, what kind of character would you be in Wakanda?
Oh, man. Probably an understudy because I never claim to be really good at anything. I do, but I'm adequate in a lot of different things. Okay, so I know how to shoot photography, but I'm not going to claim to be a Glenn Lewis or Trey Ratcliffe. I'm not able to do that, or Rick Salmon. I'm able to shoot video, but I'm not going to be, these Tyler Stallmans or anybody like that. But I know just enough, so I would be a tinkerer at Wakanda. I mean, not a tinkerer, an understudy at Wakanda, and just sort of float around and be able to just grasp a little bit of everything in that infrastructure, if you will.
Nice. Let's pretend the world is totally safe to travel right now. If you could teleport to anywhere in the world, where would you go, and why did you pick this place?
There's two places actually. Well, no, now it's three. Dang, that's bad. First one is I'd love to go to Florence, Italy. Florence, Italy. And if I couldn't get to Florence, I'll take Venice. Just I want to see Italy so badly. I love the design culture that's been with them for all of these hundreds of years, and in the food. And that's the only reason why I want to go. I just want to go to eat. Period.
Mm-hmm.
But then those other two, because I can't leave them out. The other two is I want to go back to Barcelona. Love that city, and I would love to go to Monaco. It's crazy that place is a country as small as it is, but I'd love to go to Monaco and check that out.
What's your favorite Italian food?
I don't know. I am what I am. Lasagna is always good.
It's always good. Definitely.
Lasagna is always good. Pizza's great, but man, give me lasagna. I'm a meat and taters kind of guy, so give me lasagna, all the fat.
If I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it?
Let's see. I would invest a nice amount of it into cryptocurrency, and then the rest I would put towards just something to better my family life, and whether it's something for the home, or there's something for education, but it would definitely be something more along the lines of trying to make things better for my family, because that's all that matters. That's where the peace comes from, man. I got a whole lot of inner peace, and like I told you, this whole self-awareness thing, and I love me some me, and I'm happy and all of that, but I'm happier if they're happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if I can give them something to help them get just as happy as I am, I'll do it, because I promise you, I'm probably the happiest cat you're going to find on this planet. There's a whole lot of crap-tastic stuff that goes on, but man, I wake up every single day and just I smile because I'm sitting here talking into this microphone, to you, and I get the opportunity to do it. Everybody don't get to do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I
Yeah,
get to do this
definitely.
every damn day, dude.
You know, a long time ago, I would tell people I love Mondays, and they would look at me like
Dude, me,
weirdly.
oh, dude, oh, dude. I used to have it pinned on my Twitter that I'm built for Mondays because I love
Oh
it.
wow.
I'm freaking ready for it. I spend Sunday thinking about Monday, and that's bad to an extent, but I get excited, dude. I get to do this every daggum day for a living. I get to stare at a lens. I get to speak into a microphone. I get to take a camera somewhere. I get to shoot and click the shutter. I get to open up Lightroom and Photoshop and After Effects and Resolve, and I get to do all of this stuff every single day. And this, and I would have done it for free. I would have done it for
Right.
free. So no, you're not going to hear me fussing. I'm the happiest cat you're going to find on the planet.
Love it. What you mentioned Photoshop. What's the earliest version of Photoshop that you learned on?
I have no idea because Photoshop scared the crap out of me. I avoided Photoshop for years. Oh man, Photoshop. It still scares me. It still scares me because it's so daggum powerful. Photoshop and After Effects. If you want to interrogate somebody and get the truth out of them, make them open up Photoshop or After Effects. They'll sing to you to get out of using those apps, man, because it's so much stuff in them. But I don't remember the earliest version of Photoshop.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been using it since Photoshop 4, and I still don't use everything. There's only certain tools that I use on a daily basis.
Right. It's just so much in there. I did this piece yesterday, and I'm thinking, gosh, I could do even more on this, but I just don't want to. I don't want to destroy what I already got. I'm so grateful for layers and groups and things like that, but that layer panel is just growing and growing and growing, and I'm like, okay, stop. That's just stop.
You mentioned cryptocurrency. I know you have a few of your photographs as NFTs. How's that experience been like for you?
Oh man, that was just a total shot in the dark, and it's a pretty funny story with that. I now, at this time of recording, I have 3 NFTs, and my first one sold. Somebody at Twitch Studios bought it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I am so honored that happened because I didn't expect it. I didn't expect anybody to buy it. But I said, you know what? I can put stuff out there anyway, just because people have cryptocurrency just sitting around. They do. But that has been interesting to watch because of the market itself. Right now, what I'm battling with the other 2 pieces that haven't sold is I listed them pretty daggum low. I listed them cheap, quite frankly. They're cheaper than what you would get for my prints or things like that. They're way cheaper. And with that said, the gas fees that comes along with that. I don't know if you're familiar with the way the NFT stuff works, but basically you have to pay fees to transfer it from the cryptocurrency to whatever your currency is. You are the USD or what have you. And there's fees that's associated with that, and then you're paying for the people's bandwidth to host that thing on the site at the time, and it's they call it all gas fees, and the gas fees are way more expensive than my art is at the time. So people are not really digging into it because they're like, man, I'm paying more on this gas, and the thing ain't worth this much. So what's the point? So I may need to relist it, up the price on it, because I just put it out there for fun. I wasn't expecting to make a lot of money off of it. But I did like the fact that I could get a couple coins of crypto and just sit on it and just watch it grow over time. There's some value in that, but I may need to relist them.
Mm-hmm. Well, just the fact that somebody, purchased one, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
If you had the ability to time travel, who is someone that you would want to have a meal with, and where would you take this person to eat?
I thought about this, man, and this one was difficult. It's difficult because I've been watching this show called High on the Hog here recently. And it takes a look back at African American cuisine not African American, African cuisine, and how it's influenced a lot of the American cuisine. And especially like in the South, it's not just fried chicken and collard greens because you're black. There's more stuff to it than that. But man, I don't know. That's a tough one. Um, Fly back in time. Probably Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King. And I would take him. I would probably take him to this German shop in Sarasota, Florida. How bizarre is that? Because that's by far the best German food I've had in my life, in this little tiny joint in Sarasota, Florida, the retirement capital of America.
Wow. Interesting.
It's so good, dude. I walked in there. I remember the first time I walked in there, and the dude was back behind the counter over the grill, just, flipping meats and stuff or whatever. And he's this giant of a man. I mean, massive dude, blonde hair, just shoulders from miles, just huge dude. And he's flipping that stuff, and he's drinking a beer at the same time. It's just, and it was just perfect. I'm like, okay, I'm going to love it here because this dude is just doing his thing and he's drinking a beer. And when they served me my food, they were so cool and just funny, just cracking jokes and stuff. And I loved that their accents were pretty cool. And they were just giving me hard times about, what I was ordering. And they just kept bringing me beer, just kept bringing me beer, just kept bringing me beer. I didn't pay for all of that. I mean, they were just cool. It was like, here, you like beer? You like beer? And I'm like, yeah, I love beer. And they just kept bringing me beer. And then when I would come back to that place later, I'd walk in, and if you've watched Cheers, that TV show, it was like I was Norm on Cheers. They'd say my name when I walked in. And this is just so good because German food reminds me a lot of Southern food that I grew up on. It's just a lot of good deep fried goodness and just soul, so good. But yeah, I would love to sit down and have a meal with him, Dr. King, because he's got to be the most patient man ever.
Yeah.
It's just to be able to want to love anybody and everybody in that time period and go through the things that he went through directly, as well as watch the things that, fellow man went through during that time. But yet he still continued to have love for everybody and patience to do that. So yeah, I would love to pick his brain.
Nice. What's the last song you sang in the shower?
I don't know if this is possible. Well, because the song is it's called Go, and it's by Brian Culbertson. And there's no lyrics to it because Brian Culbertson is a jazz pianist who also plays trombone and some other instruments. But the song was called Go, and it was it's a bit of a pick me up kind of song. Definitely something you listen to in the morning, and when you hear it, you can't help but to smile, and you can't help but to just push on. You can't. I challenge anybody, listen to that song and not smile. And if you're not smiling, we need to talk, and we might need to find some therapy for you because this is such a good song, such a good song.
Cool. I'll definitely have to look it up. You quoted, well, you used this statement. Photography is more than mere megapixels. It's about the story, the community, and the fun you have creating great images. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, because again, getting back to the world's media, and everything is just so broad stroke and clickbaity. You pick up a camera that has 100 megapixels and you pick up a camera that has 16 megapixels, and you immediately think that 100 megapixel camera is better. And it's not always the case. The Sony A7S III, I believe it has 16 megapixels. I can't remember. That's the hottest handheld video camera out there right now, you know, but it doesn't have a lot of megapixels. But that's fine, because if you're shooting video, you want larger pixels. Okay. Those pixels, from a size standpoint, they're bigger than what you're going to find on something that is 50 megapixels. Okay. So you want larger pixels, which is going to pick up a lot more light, which is great for video, because, you know, shooting video in low light leads to noisy, grainy video footage. So, yeah. But understanding that it's not always about the tech, it's more so about the story and the composition. And one of my examples that I like to give, and this usually pisses people off, is if you look at the photograph of Iwo Jima, the soldiers were mounting the flag. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That image is in black and white, that's one thing, or it's really not even black and white. It's more of a grayscale. Technically, it's not that great. Technically, it's not black and white. It's more of a grayscale. It's not a lot of contrast. It's a little bit washed out. It's not totally in focus, you know, from a technical standpoint. But it has emotion to it. It has story to it. And it is freaking timeless. So if you throw all of the techno mumbo jumbo out the window, you still have a beautiful piece of art right there.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you can look back at a lot of photos that had a lot of impact in history,
Mm-hmm.
and you know they probably not technically sound, but they're of that moment.
Yep.
And they have that impact.
That's all it is, brother.
What's one thing you hated as a child but love now as an adult?
Oh man, I'm too stubborn to like it as an adult. I'm way too stubborn. I can't think of one thing on that, man. I can't think of one thing, because I'm fairly easygoing, and I'll try anything as far as food wise, or I'll try to do anything, just to try it. I don't typically just say no to stuff, but the stuff that I didn't like, I still don't like. I still don't like it. You know, I'm not gonna eat squash, dude. Just not gonna happen. Just
What was your favorite thing to eat as a kid?
Oh, it was always steak, because it was so few and far in between growing up. Steak was my thing. We grew up on a lot of chicken. At one point, brother, I used to hate fried chicken. It got to a point where I hated fried chicken. And then I got back into it, because I was able to get away from it and not have it. Because we would have chicken almost every day growing up.
I see.
Because it was cheap. That's what the family and the people in that community could afford, was chicken. And it was fried chicken. It was boiled chicken. Every now and then you get lucky and have it baked, but most of the time it was fried. But then every now and then you get steak. And again, my family wasn't rich. Definitely didn't have a lot of money, but every now and then they wanted to try to splurge. And the splurging was, we'd get steak, and that steak at the time was a sirloin. I'm not a fan of sirloin, but it was steak. So I was like, hey, I'm having steak for dinner. And I loved the idea of getting steak. So, but nowadays I'm not eating sirloin. I'm fortunate enough to get ribeyes, and
So slowly you make your way to Wagyu.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to get my hands on Wagyu. They supposedly have it at Costco.
Oh wow.
Supposedly they have frozen Wagyu at Costco because, things were so bad with the pandemic. They had to get rid of it over there. So they couldn't necessarily all just sell it all to the hotels and casinos because people wasn't traveling. So I had to sell it
Well,
somewhere.
I'll have to look out for it. If you were a Jedi, what color would your lightsaber be?
Still youngling. Youngling. Again, I'm not a master at all. Not a master at all. But I'm good enough, just to get it done. But I'll be a youngling.
Yeah. If you were president of the United States, what kind of artwork would you hang up in the Oval Office?
My own.
Nice.
Because I'm of the mind that, you know what, if I don't believe in my art, why would I expect someone else to believe in it? I'm going to be my biggest cheerleader to the end of my times. And I love having people support me and root for me, but I'm going to be a bigger cheerleader than they are every single day of the week. And I think that's only fair to the people that are potentially interested in purchasing my work. If I don't believe in it, why in the heck should I expect them to believe in it? And better yet, why should I expect them to pay me for it?
Definitely. It's a good point. And, it's something that a lot of people probably wouldn't say because they're probably reticent of trying to promote their own stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but dude, I have to self promote. I don't like coming off as spammy. I try to balance that, but at the same time, I'm like, look, I worked hard on this stuff, and quite frankly, it's pretty dadgum good too. So, yeah, I dig it. You should here check it out.
The next part of the podcast is superhero shoutouts. Is there a person or a group of people that has helped you along the way that you'd like to say thank you to?
Well, as always, man, and people never really quite get this, but you're supposed to say your mom and your family and all of that stuff. And yeah, they've been supportive of me. But I have to give a lot of credit to my coaching staff from when I was a kid, and just the game in football in general, because that game changed my life. That 33% nerd and 33% dork, I lived that, dude. I lived it. And battling acceptance is something that everybody faces at a young age, and it could be pretty traumatic for some people. It wasn't traumatic for me, but I do remember it being challenging, just wanting to be accepted. And then I finally got to a point of just accepting myself and being comfortable with that, and being able to push myself on certain things. And football and my coaching staff did all of that for me. They brought all of that to head for me. I credit my parents for putting me into football, even though they didn't necessarily want to. But it did help me to learn how to push myself and how to believe in myself, and understand that, sometimes you can push yourself beyond what you think your limits are. I've seen it. I've seen it physically, and it's just something that I live by every single day. There's not a scenario in my day that I can't relate back to a story in football every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my coaches, Coach Martin in particular, Coach Abercrombie, Coach Sullivan, Coach Revel, those cats, man, they were there. And I still, it chokes me up when I think about some of the discussions that we've had over the years, and them just believing in me and just pushing me to do better and be better, and then translate that into beyond the football field. It wasn't just sports for those men. They were trying to help me grow.
I think it's a good hallmark of a good coach.
Right.
Is there an artist, writer, other creative, or other content creators that you'd like our audience to check out?
Actually, yeah, there's a couple. I've grown to really enjoy the works of, and these are some fans from the show. One gentleman, his name is Joseph Akbrud. I can't quite pronounce his name, but it's his handle is Byte for Byte, and it's Byte as in like the computer Byte.
Hmm.
It's Byte for Byte on Instagram and Twitter. And he does a lot of really, really captivating street photography. And a lot of time he's shooting at a semi wide focal length, like 35 mil or maybe a little bit wider than that. And it's just classic street photography there in New York. Um, and I don't think he gets enough eyeballs. That's just me. But then again, photography is such a saturated market. I wish he got more eyeballs. Um, and then there's also another fan. His name is Jim. I don't remember his last name, but he's merely Jim on Instagram and Twitter. And he's an older guy, a slightly older guy than me, I guess. Veteran, U.S. veteran, and he shoots with his smartphone. And he just I've watched his progress over the last year and a half or so, as he was able to he jumped onto the show because he's a Twit fan, and he checked it out. And I've been watching just his progress of understanding composition and his post processing, and it's all done on mobile phone. And it's beautiful work down in the Fort Worth, Texas area. But I really like just seeing what he does. He's been a big supporter of me and the network, and seeing his progress, I take some pride in it because he has said that, you know what, I've learned a lot from watching your show, and thank you. And it's nice that I can tangibly see the stuff that I'm trying to do for the community is actually showing up on the screens. So yeah, merely Jim.
Cool. I'll definitely look those up and put links on the blog post. I guess we'll start closing out the show. Did we miss anything? Are there any other projects that you like to promote?
Well, sure. Check out all of our shows on the network at Twit TV. I co-host This Week in Google, which is twit.tv/twig, TWIG, which stands for This Week in Google. I also co-host Hands on Tech, which is our consumer technology product show, where I've had the opportunity to demo some cameras and laptops and other things, and that is twit.tv/hot for Hands on Tech. And lastly, something more so on the personal side, but it's still my brand. Check out wanderersphoto.com. That is a workshop that I will be teaching at here in October 2021 in New Orleans. It's put together by Mr. Freddie Clark, who is an amazing food and beverage photographer. And some of the other photographers there that are going to be teaching are Mr. Steve Brazel. He's going to teach concert photography. Steve Brazel, spelled like Brazil, but it's 2 L's. Amazing photographer, as well as he's another podcast host. And then Mr. Andrew Scrivani. He's an outstanding food and beverage photographer as well, and he'll be teaching food and beverage photography. He's also part of Chef John's podcast. I don't know if you folks have ever heard of Chef John on YouTube.
Oh, is it Food Wishes?
Yes, Food Wishes.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
works with him and does some amazing photography and cinematography stuff. So yeah, that's
Nice.
wanderersphotos.com. He's going to be teaching food and beverage. Steve's going to be teaching concert photography. I'm going to be teaching street photography and cityscapes because I love just street photography is my favorite. If it wasn't for portraits, street photography is right there too.
Nice. I love candid shots.
Yeah, it's a story. Again, it's all
Yeah.
about the stories.
So the project in New Orleans, are you going to be teaching there, or is it going to be remotely?
Oh, we'll be there.
Ah.
We'll be there. I'll be flying out in October, and we'll be down in the French Quarter. So go check it out and register. It's limited space on it. So just go to the website wanderersphoto.com and register to hang out with us. I believe we're capping it at 12 people. I believe.
Nice. That should be a fun time.
Because we want to keep it intimate, you know. It gets too big, then you can't really connect with people if they have questions, you know.
Yeah, that's really true. It's like I remember back in college, it's those bigger classes that I didn't have the most fun in.
Yeah, right, right, exactly.
Hey there, Aaron here with just a quick update about the Wanderers New Orleans Photography Workshop. It has been rescheduled for Sunday, January 23rd through January 27th, 2022. If you would like to attend this multi-disciplined 5-day workshop, please check out the latest news at wanderersphoto.com to reserve your spot today. Isn't Ant an awesome guest? Please make sure to give him a follow. Now, back to the podcast. Yeah, New Orleans. I've never been there, but
I haven't either, so it's going to be a first time for me, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to go there to eat, I want to do everything everywhere else I go. I want to go there to eat, but I just want to see the scenery because that city has so much history, interesting, fascinating history that gets swept under the rug, and I want to get down in the middle of it and hopefully be able to bring out some beautiful stories through pictures as
Right.
well as help the other folks there be able to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched Chef again a few months ago, and there was that scene when him and his son are in New Orleans, and the son gets the beignet for the first time. So,
Oh man, oh gosh, I want to, because I've had air quotes beignets from people from New Orleans, but I didn't have it. I didn't have beignets that were in New Orleans that had the same water to make the dough that's there in New Orleans. That makes a big difference,
Right.
Big difference.
What are the best places to follow you online?
Yeah, please give me a follow over on Twitterverse. I'm fairly active there, more so than I am on Instagram, but I do use Instagram on both platforms. I am ant_Pruitt. Ant_Pruitt on both of them, Instagram and Twitter. And I try to interact fairly regularly with people over there. I try not to be a spam bot, but again, I do have to promote my work because if I don't promote my work, why should I expect someone else to promote it?
Exactly. That's really good advice. But before I let you go, what are some other helpful pieces of advice for someone that wants to express themselves as a digital content creator but doesn't know where to begin?
If you want to express yourself as a digital content creator and don't know where to begin, start with a good old Instagram account or just a YouTube account and make it private and get yourself in a position where you're comfortable with uploading. That's the first thing. You got to keep shooting and you got to keep uploading. Upload something every daggum day if you have to, and just get yourself in the muscle memory of doing that. And since your account is private, you're not worried about likes and comments and all of that bullshit that people are just losing their mind over. That stuff comes. It ain't gonna come when you first start. So just get that out of your head. Just get comfortable with uploading on a regular basis and believing in what you're uploading. Because if you don't believe in it and you just throw up some junk, the people viewing it are going to see it as junk and they're not going to come back. But if you got some passion with it and believe in it, they'll know it and they're going to give you a couple seconds of their time. So just keep uploading. Just keep uploading.
Nice. That's really good advice. I like that one. You got to get those reps in for sure,
Yeah,
and get comfortable.
that's all it is.
Well, Ant, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time in your busy schedule to come on the show. It's been awesome having you on.
Oh, dude, I appreciate you even asking me because, quite frankly, I'm only 33% geek. I didn't think I was geeky enough for you,
But you're 100% you're 100% awesome, man. So
Thank you so much.
That's good enough. I mean, in all honesty, you're the type of person that I love showcasing to my audience because, I mean, one, you provide great value to the people that you to your community.
I try. Thank you.
And especially for people who who, like you said, you don't want to cater to the professional people. While I do interview a lot of professionals, but at the same time, a lot of the advice and information that they give out, um, it's really helpful for people who are just starting out too. So I
Yeah.
think that's really valuable.
Yeah. And see, now, the reason why I said I didn't want to do the show for professionals is because it was more of a personal experience. When I was trying to learn this craft and I was reaching out to pros, they were jackasses to me. I mean,
Uh,
it was just flat out rude, and I don't know why. And it was a lot of the, you can't shoot with that. You need to shoot with this. You shouldn't shoot this way. And instead of telling me why, or instead of encouraging, it was just ridiculous how rude these people were. And it put a sour taste in my mouth and said, you know what, if I ever got into the position to where I can help somebody else figure out this craft of photography, I'll never, ever be like one of those pros that I dealt with. And
mhm.
just, I want this to be the lowest barrier to entry as possible. If you got a phone and it's got a camera on it, you're in, period. You're going to have
That's
some
perfect.
limitations. Yeah, you're going to have some limitations, but you know what? You're in. Let's go shoot.
That's right. It's the democratization on creativity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you for coming on the show, Ant, and thank you, Holiday Show listeners, for checking out this podcast. Yeah, check out Ant online and check out all the awesome videos where he provides awesome information and resources for digital content creators everywhere. We love putting the spotlight on independent pop culture creators. If you have a suggestion for potential guests, please let us know. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Usually I list out everything, but it's getting too long now. And you can also find our podcast on hallh.com. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators, we would appreciate a rating, hopefully 5 stars, and a comment on Apple Podcasts. And please spread the word on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Peace, cheers, and stay safe out there.